The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched out like a metal cathedral, its walls gleaming under the light of artificial stars. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the curved seats, their forms as different as the worlds they came from. Some floated in bubbles of gas, others stood on legs that looked like crystal trees, and a few existed as nothing more than glowing lights that pulsed with thought. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked down the center aisle, her simple black suit making her look small among the exotic aliens. Her heels clicked on the metal floor, each step echoing in the vast space. She carried a datapad in her hands, and on it was humanity's request to join the Galactic Council. The human woman reached the speaking platform at the center of the hall. Around her, curved rows of seats rose up like an amphitheater, filled with creatures that had ruled space for thousands of years. Elena had practiced this speech 100 times, but standing here now, she felt the weight of every alien gaze upon her. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's sound system. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, representing the United Earth Government. We come before you today to request full membership in this council. A sound like wind chimes came from the ethereal section, where beings made of colored gas swirled in their containment fields. Elena knew this was their version of polite laughter. In the Corvin section, massive reptilian warriors with scales like armor plates made low rumbling sounds that might have been amusement. War Marshal Theknos of the Corvin Empire rose from his seat. He stood 3 meters tall, his scarred hide covered in ceremonial battle marks. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the hall like distant thunder. Humans, he said, and the word dripped with condescension. You have barely learned to leave your own star system. Your ships still burn chemical fuel like ancient torches. What could you possibly offer this council? More sounds of amusement rippled through the hall. The Zephyrians, whose bodies looked like living crystal sculptures, created a tinkling harmony that was clearly mockery. Even the ancient Vex Collective, usually silent in their shared mind link, projected waves of dismissive thoughts that everyone could feel. Elena kept her face calm, though inside she felt anger rising. We offer fresh perspectives, new ideas, and the willingness to learn from our fellow civilizations. Fresh perspectives. This came from the Vex Collective's speaker, a pale humanoid whose eyes glowed with the shared consciousness of billions. You are children playing with fire sticks while we harness the power of stars. Your perspectives are those of infants. The hall erupted in various forms of alien laughter. Some species hissed, others created musical tones, and a few simply projected amused thoughts that washed over the gathered crowd like waves. Elena waited for the noise to die down. She had expected this reaction. Earth's intelligence services had warned her that the galaxy's major powers saw humanity as primitive upstarts. What they didn't know was that this was exactly what Earth wanted them to think. We understand your concerns, Elena said carefully. Humanity is young compared to your great civilizations. We have much to learn. Indeed you do, said Counselor Vexahai of the Zephyrian Crystalline Collective. Her voice rang like struck glass. Your species has been in space for less than a century. We have been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. The difference is significant. More ripples of amusement went through the hall. Elena noticed that some of the smaller species, those who served as vassals to the major powers, remained silent. Their representatives watched the proceedings with careful eyes, saying nothing. High Counselor Nextara, an ancient being whose species had founded the Galactic Council, raised one of her forearms for silence. The hall gradually quieted. The human request has been noted, Nextara said, her voice carrying the authority of eons. However, full membership requires certain capabilities that humanity has not yet demonstrated. Such as? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Military strength sufficient to defend your territory, War Marshal Techno said bluntly. Economic power to contribute meaningfully to galactic trade. Technological advancement beyond primitive rocket propulsion. Your largest warships are barely the size of our patrol boats, added the Vex Collective speaker, and they move so slowly that our civilian transports could outrun them. Elena nodded as if accepting these criticisms. What would you suggest then? The council members exchanged glances, or whatever passed for glances, among their various species. Elena could sense the telepathic conversations happening between some of them. Quick bursts of thought too fast for human minds to follow. We propose probationary observer status, Nextara announced finally. You may observe council proceedings and participate in certain trade agreements. However, you will have no voting rights and your territorial claims will be limited. How limited? Elena asked. A holographic star map appeared in the center of the hall. Elena's heart sank as she saw the tiny section highlighted in blue. A small cluster of star systems on the very edge of the galaxy, far from the major trade routes and resource-rich worlds. The outer rim sector, Technos said with obvious satisfaction. 12 systems, most of them empty space, suitable for a species of your current capabilities. And if we expand beyond these boundaries? Elena asked. That would require council approval, the Vex Collective speaker said smoothly. Unauthorized expansion would necessitate corrective action. Elena knew what that meant. Any human ship that strayed beyond their assigned territory would be destroyed. The galaxy's major powers were drawing a cage around humanity, and they were barely bothering to hide it. These terms are generous, Elena said, putting just the right amount of gratitude into her voice. We accept. As the formal voting began, Elena listened to the various species casting their ballots. Every major power voted in favor of the restrictions. They wanted humanity contained but not destroyed, a useful example of what happened to species that reached too far above their station. The smaller species mostly abstained or followed their patron's lead. Only a few voted against the measure, and Elena made note of which ones they were. Earth might need friends in the coming years. After the vote concluded, Elena gathered her things and prepared to leave. As she walked back down the center aisle, she could hear the conversations starting around her. The translators in her earpiece picked up fragments in dozens of languages. How long before they destroy themselves? One voice asked. I give them 50 years before they beg for protection, another replied. Did you see their ship in the docking bay? Chemical thrusters and metal plating. Like something from a museum. Elena allowed herself a small smile as she reached the exit. If only they knew what was really hidden in Earth's solar system. The massive construction projects on the far side of Luna. The weapons that made the galaxy's plasma cannons look like children's toys. The artificial intelligence that was even now learning everything it could about alien military technology, from intercepted communications. Let them laugh, Elena thought as she boarded her simple-looking transport ship. Let them think humanity was weak and primitive. In the hidden cargo bay of her vessel, encrypted data cores contained detailed scans of every ship in the Nexus Prime system. Information that Earth's military would find very interesting indeed. The galaxy had made its first mistake. They had underestimated humanity. It would not be their last. 3 months had passed since humanity received their generous assignment to the Outer Rim. In the great halls of Nexus Prime, the major powers had already moved on to more important matters. Trade disputes between the Corvan Empire and the Zephyrian Collective, territorial negotiations with the gas miners of the ethereal cloud. The humans were forgotten, filed away as a minor species barely worth monitoring. But in the intelligence centers of those same powers, junior analysts were starting to notice strange reports. Energy signatures in the human sector are increasing, reported Subcommander Vectal to his superior in the Corvan monitoring station. The readings are unusual. Commander Zexmore barely looked up from his tactical displays. Define unusual. Massive construction projects. Industrial activity on a scale that doesn't match their supposed technology level. Vectal pulled up the sensor data on his screen. Sir, these energy readings suggest they're building something big. Probably trying to upgrade their primitive infrastructure, Zexmore said dismissively. Humans are known for their crude but determined engineering. Let them play with their chemical rockets. Vectal wasn't convinced, but he knew better than to argue with his commander. Still, he made note to increase surveillance on the human systems. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Trade captains reported seeing human ships in unexpected places, always claiming to be on routine mining or exploration missions. The ships looked harmless enough. Blocky, industrial designs that screamed primitive technology. But they were appearing in more and more systems, always with plausible explanations for their presence. Captain Narration of the Ethereal Merchant Fleet filed her report with growing unease. The humans are mapping everything, she told her supervisor through their quantum communication link. They scan every asteroid, every planet, every piece of space debris. They claim it's for scientific research, but, her supervisor prompted. No species does that much scientific research unless they're planning something. The supervisor's gaseous form shifted colors, indicating deep thought. Have you detected any weapons? Nothing obvious. But their sensor arrays are more sophisticated than their ship suggests they should be, and they're always asking questions about our trade routes, our mining operations, our patrol schedules. On the hidden side of Earth's moon, Captain Zara Chen stood in the command center of humanity's greatest secret. Through massive viewing windows, she could see the construction bays where the future of human military power was taking shape. The EDF Prometheus stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its angular hull bristling with weapon systems that would revolutionize space warfare. Where other species built sleek ships designed to channel exotic energies, humans had taken a different approach entirely. Ares, status report, Chen said to the air. All primary systems online. Captain, came the reply from speakers throughout the command center. The voice sounded human, but Chen knew better. Arsman Adaptive Response Electronic System was the culmination of decades of human artificial intelligence research. Unlike the rigid computer systems used by other species, Ares could think, learn, and adapt in real time. How are our surveillance operations proceeding? Data collection is ahead of schedule, Ares replied. I have detailed tactical information on 47 different alien ship classes, including shield frequencies, weapon capabilities, and structural weak points. The galaxy's major powers continue to use standardized designs with predictable vulnerabilities, Chen smiled. While the aliens had been laughing at humanity's primitive technology, human spy satellites and disguised survey ships had been mapping every military installation, trade route, and patrol pattern in their assigned sector and beyond. What about our kinetic weapons testing? Successful beyond projections. The tungsten projectiles achieve the required velocities with minimal energy expenditure. Alien shield technology appears completely unprepared for kinetic impact at near-light speeds. Chen nodded. While the galaxy species had spent millennia perfecting energy weapons and defensive shields, they had never encountered anything like human railgun technology. Their shields could deflect plasma bolts and laser beams, but they were useless against solid projectiles moving at 15% of light speed. Admiral Sarah Morrison materialized on the holographic communication platform, her image transmitted from Earth Defense Command back on the home planet. Captain Chen, we've received new intelligence from our observation posts. The Corvan Empire is becoming suspicious of our activities. How suspicious? Chen asked. They're increasing patrols near our territory. Their monitoring stations are running more frequent scans. It's only a matter of time before they decide to investigate directly. Chen felt a familiar tightness in her stomach. Earth had always known this moment would come. The question was whether humanity would be ready when it did. How long do we have? Ares estimates we have between 2 and 6 weeks before the Corvans make their move, Admiral Morrison replied. They're proud warriors. Being assigned to monitor primitive humans is an insult to their status. They'll want to prove their worth by catching us in some violation of our territorial limits. And the Prometheus? She'll be ready. The question is whether one ship will be enough. Chen looked out at the massive warship floating in the construction bay. Compared to the sleek vessels favored by other species, the Prometheus looked brutally functional. Its hull was thick armor plating designed to absorb punishment. Its weapons were solid, proven technologies that could be manufactured quickly and maintained easily. But it was what couldn't be seen that made the Prometheus truly dangerous. The distributed intelligence network that linked every system, the adaptive targeting computers that could track hundreds of enemy vessels simultaneously, the quantum communication array that allowed instantaneous coordination with Earth's growing fleet. One ship might be enough, Chen said quietly, if it's the right ship. Back on Nexus Prime, War Marshal Theknos was growing impatient with the lack of concrete intelligence from the human sector. His subordinates kept filing reports about unusual activity and energy signatures, but no one could tell him what the humans were actually doing. I want a direct reconnaissance mission, he announced to his staff. Send a patrol squadron to investigate these human construction projects. If they're violating their territorial limits or building weapons, I want proof. Sir, one of his aides ventured carefully. The humans haven't technically violated any regulations, and a direct military investigation might be seen as provocative. Theknos' eyes narrowed. Provocative? They're barely capable of interplanetary flight. What are they going to do, throw rocks at us? The aide said nothing, but made a note to ensure the patrol squadron was properly equipped. Better to be overcautious when dealing with an unknown species, even one as apparently primitive as humanity. 3 days later, Commander Vextal received his orders. He was to take 3 heavy cruisers into human space and investigate reports of unauthorized mining operations beyond their assigned territory. It was exactly the kind of mission he had been hoping for, a chance to prove himself against an inferior enemy. As his squadron departed Corvin space, Vextal reviewed the intelligence files on human military capabilities. Chemical rockets for propulsion, primitive kinetic weapons, no energy shields worth mentioning, no advanced AI systems. It would be like fighting with museum pieces. On the hidden side of Luna, Ares detected the Corvin squadron's departure within minutes. The AI's sensors tracked their course, calculated their arrival time, and began running tactical simulations. Captain Chen, Ares announced, "The moment of truth approaches. Corvin heavy cruisers are en route to investigate our mining operations in the Kepler system. They will arrive in 47 hours. Chen nodded grimly. She had always known this day would come. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not what it seemed. Signal the Prometheus, she ordered. It's time to show them what humans can really do. The Kepler system hung in space like a collection of scattered jewels, its asteroid fields rich with rare metals that humanity needed for their secret construction projects. 3 human mining vessels worked steadily among the rocks, their industrial designs making them look like simple cargo haulers to any casual observer. Commander Vextal's squadron dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, their Corvin heavy cruisers emerging from the swirling energy of the hyperspace jump. Each ship stretched 400 meters from nose to tail, their hulls covered in the distinctive crimson plating of the Imperial fleet. "Scan the system," Vextal ordered from his command chair. "I want to know everything about these human operations." The sensor operator's clawed hands danced across his console. 3 mining vessels, Commander. Crew designs, minimal shielding. They're working the asteroid field in Grid 7. Any defensive installations? None detected, sir. Wait. The operator's scales shifted color, indicating confusion. There's something else out there. Small ship hiding behind one of the larger asteroids. Vextal's eyes narrowed. Display it. The main screen showed a ship unlike anything in the Corvin databases. It was angular where their ships were curved, brutal where theirs were elegant. Thick armor plating covered its hull, and strange protrusions that might have been weapons jutted out at irregular intervals. "That's not in our intelligence files," the tactical officer said. "It doesn't match any known human design." "Then we'll add it to the files," Vextal said grimly. "Signal the mining vessels. Tell them to cease operations and prepare for boarding. They've violated their territorial limits." The communications officer sent the message, and they waited for the panicked human response. Instead, the mining ships simply continued their work, ignoring the Corvin demands entirely. "Sir," the communications officer said, "the humans are responding. Put it through." The main screen shifted to show a human female in a simple gray uniform. She looked remarkably calm for someone facing 3 Corvin heavy cruisers. "This is Captain Zara Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Prometheus," she said. "You are operating in violation of established territorial boundaries. Please return to Corvin space immediately." Vextal couldn't believe what he was hearing. Did that primitive just order us to retreat? His bridge crew exchanged glances. In their experience, inferior species usually begged for mercy when faced with imperial might. This human seemed almost confident. "Human vessel," Vextal said, allowing his voice to carry the full weight of imperial authority. "You will surrender immediately for inspection. Any resistance will be met with deadly force." Captain Chen's image remained steady on the screen. "Commander, I'm going to give you one chance to withdraw. Your ships are not equipped to engage a human warship." The bridge erupted in harsh laughter. Vextal's tactical officer was practically howling with amusement. "Not equipped? Commander, our shield arrays could withstand their entire fleet." "Sir," the sensor operator interrupted, "the human ship is moving. It's coming out from behind the asteroid." On screen, the EDF Prometheus emerged into full view. Even Vextal had to admit it was larger than expected, nearly 2 kilometers long. But it looked like exactly what it was, a primitive metal construct held together with crude engineering. "It has no visible shield generators," The tactical officer reported. No plasma lance arrays, no quantum torpedo tubes. I'm reading some kind of magnetic acceleration system, but nothing that could threaten Imperial armor. Vextal made his decision. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Show them what real weapons can do. The lead cruiser's main plasma lance fired, sending a bolt of superheated energy past the human ship's hull. The blast should have been enough to demonstrate the futility of resistance. Instead, something impossible happened. The Prometheus fired back. There was no visible energy beam, no dramatic light show. One moment Vextal's ship was undamaged, the next moment alarms were screaming throughout the bridge. The main display showed a tungsten projectile, a simple piece of metal, had punched through their forward shields like they weren't even there. Damage report. Vextal shouted. Forward shield generators are offline, his engineer called back. The projectile penetrated clean through to the secondary hull. Sir, our shields didn't even slow it down. That's impossible, the tactical officer said. Nothing gets through Corvin's shields that easily. Apparently human weapons do, Vextal said grimly. All ships open fire. Full bombardment. The three cruisers unleashed everything they had. Plasma lances fired in sequence. Quantum torpedoes streaked across space and particle beam weapons painted the void with deadly light. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the Prometheus was no longer where they had been shooting. Where did it go? Vextal demanded. It's moving, sir. Faster than our sensors predicted, and it's launching some kind of projectiles. On the tactical display, dozens of small objects were racing toward the Corvin ships. They looked like simple metal rods, but they were moving at incredible speeds. Point defense, Vextal ordered. Shoot them down! The Corvin ships' defensive systems opened fire, filling space with energy beams designed to intercept incoming missiles. But these weren't missiles. They were solid projectiles with no engines to destroy, no guidance systems to jam. The energy weapons passed harmlessly around them as they continued their deadly approach. The first kinetic kill vehicle struck Vextal's ship in the engine section. The tungsten rod, moving at 12% of light speed, carried more energy than a small nuclear weapon. It punched through the hull, vaporized the secondary reactor, and kept going until it exited the other side of the ship. Engineering is gone, someone screamed. We've lost main power. The second cruiser took 3 hits in rapid succession. Its shields, designed to deflect energy attacks, were useless against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The ship broke apart, its hull simply unable to contain the massive kinetic impacts. Impossible, Vextal whispered. This is impossible. But the human ship wasn't finished. As the third cruiser tried to retreat, the Prometheus demonstrated another human innovation: point defense lasers. Not the powerful beam weapons other species used for offense, but precise rapid-fire systems designed to create clouds of superheated metal fragments. The retreating cruiser flew straight into what looked like empty space until the Prometheus's defensive lasers turned a nearby asteroid into an expanding cloud of molten rock. The Corvin ship, traveling at high speed, had no time to avoid the debris field. Its hull was sandblasted by thousands of metal fragments, crippling its engines and leaving it drifting helplessly. In less than 15 minutes, 3 Corvin heavy cruisers, ships that had never lost a battle against any known enemy, had been defeated by a single human vessel. Vextal sat in his damaged command chair, emergency lighting casting strange shadows across his bridge. Half his crew was dead or injured, his ship was crippled, and he was completely at the mercy of a species he had thought was primitive. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, the human ship is hailing us. Captain Chen's face appeared on screen again, but this time Vextal was seeing her with new eyes. This wasn't a primitive human begging for mercy. This was a predator that had just demonstrated exactly how dangerous her species could be. Commander Vextal, Chen said, and somehow she knew his name. Your ships are disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are alive. This was a demonstration, not an execution. What do you want? Vextal managed. I want you to take a message back to your empire, Chen said. Tell them that humanity is not what they think we are. Tell them that our weapons work differently than theirs. And tell them that the next time Corvin ships enter human space without permission, we won't be so merciful. Vextal's ship limped away from the Kepler system 3 hours later, its hull patched with emergency repairs and its pride completely shattered. Behind them, The human mining operations continued as if nothing had happened. But across the galaxy, the news was already spreading. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Corvan Empire had been defeated in battle, and the species that had done it was the same one the Galactic Council had dismissed as primitive just months before. The laughter had stopped. Now everyone was listening. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of receiving Commander Vextal's report. The Great Hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with tension as representatives from across the galaxy demanded answers to impossible questions. War Marshal Theknos stood before the assembly, his scarred hide bearing fresh cuts from his own claws, marks of shame that all could see. The human vessel destroyed 2 of our heavy cruisers and disabled a 3rd, he reported, his voice heavy with humiliation. Their weapons penetrated our shields as if they didn't exist. Impossible, declared Counselor Vexhai of the Zephyrian Collective. Her crystalline form rang with disbelief. Corvan shields have withstood plasma bombardments from entire fleets. How could primitive kinetic weapons succeed where energy weapons have failed? The Vex Collective's speaker leaned forward, his pale eyes glowing with shared consciousness. Our analysis suggests the humans have developed a completely different approach to warfare. Their projectiles carry kinetic energy levels that exceed theoretical maximums for chemical propulsion. You're saying they've surpassed our technology? High Counselor Nextara asked. We're saying they've ignored our technology entirely, the Vex speaker replied. While we perfected energy manipulation, they perfected matter acceleration. Our defenses were never designed to handle solid projectiles moving at near light speeds. The revelation sent ripples of unease throughout the hall. For millennia, the galaxy's major powers had competed to build better plasma weapons and stronger energy shields. The idea that someone could simply bypass that entire technological framework was deeply disturbing. Theknos continued his report. The human ship demonstrated tactical capabilities we didn't know they possessed. Advanced sensors, coordinated, weapon systems, and something our intelligence experts are calling adaptive response patterns. Meaning? Nextera prompted. Their ship learned from our attacks in real time. When we fired quantum torpedoes, their defensive systems immediately developed countermeasures. When we attempted jamming, they switched to backup frequencies we didn't know existed. It was as if we were fighting an opponent that could think faster than we could act. In the ethereal section, clouds of colored gas swirled with agitation. Their representative spoke through harmonic frequencies that translated to, if one human ship can defeat 3 Corvan cruisers, what happens when they build a fleet? That question hung in the air like a death sentence. If humanity could mass-produce their kinetic weapons and adaptive systems, the entire balance of galactic power would shift overnight. We cannot allow this threat to grow, Theknos declared. I propose immediate military action. A coalition, fleet to destroy the human homeworld before they can spread their technology. The hall erupted in various forms of agreement. Species that had spent centuries competing with each other suddenly found common cause in their fear of humanity. How large a fleet? Asked the ethereal representative. Every available ship, Theknos replied. 200 vessels from all major powers. We end this now, before the humans can build more of their weapons. Within days, the largest military force in galactic history was assembling at Nexus Prime. Corvan battle cruisers with their crimson hulls and plasma lances, Zephyrian crystal ships that could phase in and out of normal space, ethereal vessels that existed partially in other dimensions, Vex Collective bioships that grew their own weapons and could repair battle damage in real time. Admiral Kex Mora of the combined fleet stood on the bridge of the Corvan flagship destroyer of worlds, watching as ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace to join the armada. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of its species' military technology. 217 ships confirmed, his tactical officer reported. We have enough firepower to glass an entire star system. Good, Kex Mora said, because that's exactly what we're going to do. The fleet jumped to hyperspace destination, Sol system, home of humanity. But in the hidden command centers scattered throughout Earth's solar system, humanity was ready. Admiral Sarah Morrison stood in the primary war room buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching holographic displays that showed the approaching enemy fleet. Around her, officers from every branch of Earth's military coordinated the defense of their homeworld. Ares. Status report. Morrison commanded. The artificial intelligence's voice filled the room from speakers that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Coalition fleet detected at hyperspace emergence point, 217 vessels of various classes. Estimated arrival in Sol system, 4 hours, 37 minutes. Our defensive grid? All orbital platforms online. Asteroid belt installations report ready status. Luna base is operational with full complement of kinetic interceptors. Morrison nodded. While the galaxy had been laughing at human, primitive technology, Earth had been building the most sophisticated defense network in known space. Orbital railgun platforms disguised as communication satellites, asteroid mining stations that were actually weapon emplacements, and scattered throughout the system, 50 human warships that the aliens had never detected. Captain Chen reports the Prometheus is ready for combat operations. Ares continued. The remaining fleet units are taking assigned positions. What's our tactical assessment? Enemy fleet composition suggests they're planning total destruction rather than occupation. Their weapons are optimized for planetary bombardment. However, their defensive systems remain vulnerable to kinetic impact. Morrison allowed herself a grim smile. The aliens were bringing overwhelming firepower, but they were still thinking in terms of energy weapons and shields. They had no idea what they were flying into. All units, this is Admiral Morrison, she announced on the fleet-wide channel. The enemy approaches with superior numbers but inferior understanding. They think they're fighting the same primitive humans they encountered months ago. Show them how wrong they are. The coalition fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, their massive formation spreading across thousands of kilometers of space. Admiral Kexmora stood on his bridge, studying the sensor displays that showed a small blue-green world orbiting a modest yellow star. Pitiful, he muttered. One planet, barely space-capable. This will be over quickly. Sir, his sensor operator said, I'm detecting some unusual readings throughout the system. Define unusual. Energy signatures that don't match our databases. And there are objects in the asteroid belt that seem to be watching us. Before Kexmora could respond, the human communication came through. Coalition fleet, this is Admiral. Sarah Morrison of Earth Defense Command, a human voice said calmly. You have entered Sol system in violation of galactic law. Turn around now or face the consequences. The bridge erupted in laughter. Kexmora himself couldn't believe the audacity. Human, you face 200 ships. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. I don't think you understand, Morrison replied. You're not attacking a primitive colony. You're attacking the homeworld of a species that has been preparing for this moment since the day we joined your council. That's when the asteroid belt opened fire. What the aliens had thought were simple mining installations revealed themselves as massive railgun platforms. Tungsten projectiles the size of small buildings began racing across the solar system at significant fractions of light speed. But these weren't random shots. They were coordinated by Ares, calculated to arrive at precise points where the enemy ships would be. Evasive action, Kexmora shouted, but it was too late. The first salvo struck the coalition fleet like hammers from the gods. Ships that had never been seriously damaged in battle simply disintegrated under kinetic impacts that their shields couldn't stop. In the first 30 seconds, 12 vessels were completely destroyed and twice that many were crippled. Return fire, Kexmora ordered. All ships target those platforms. The coalition fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma lances, quantum, torpedoes, particle beams, and exotic weapons that could crack moons. Space lit up with enough energy to power small suns, but the human defensive platforms were not where they appeared to be. Holographic projections, Ares explained to Admiral Morrison as they watched the enemy waste ammunition on empty space. They're firing at illusions while the real platforms remain hidden. And our fleet? Moving into position. The enemy has focused all attention on the asteroid belt. They haven't detected our ships approaching from behind. Captain Chen's voice. crackled over the communication system from the bridge of the Prometheus. "Admiral, human fleet is in position. Request permission to engage." "Granted," Morrison replied. "Show them what 50 human warships can do." The Coalition fleet was still bombarding empty space when the human attack came from behind. 50 ships materialized out of what had seemed like empty void, their stealth systems finally dropping to reveal the true scope of humanity's military preparation. The aliens found themselves caught between the hidden railgun platforms ahead and an entire human fleet behind. But worse than the tactical disadvantage was the realization that they had been completely outmaneuvered by a species they considered primitive. "This is impossible!" Kexmora screamed as his tactical displays showed human ships moving in perfect coordination, sharing targeting data faster than his computers could track. "They're supposed to be inferior." The battle for Sol system lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 137 alien warships drifted dead in space, their hulls broken by weapons the galaxy had never seen before. Another 43 had been captured when their crews surrendered rather than face complete annihilation. Only 37 ships escaped to tell the tale. Admiral Kexmora was not among the survivors. His flagship had been one of the first to fall when Ares coordinated a simultaneous strike from 12 different human vessels. The Destroyer of Worlds, pride of the Corvan fleet, had been torn apart by kinetic projectiles that turned its thick armor into scattered debris. Admiral Sarah Morrison stood in the observation deck of Nexus Prime Station, looking out at the EDF Prometheus, floating in parking orbit just outside the diplomatic complex. The massive human warship's point defense systems tracked every moving object in the system, not as a threat, but as a reminder of the new reality. 3 weeks had passed since the battle. 3 weeks for the galaxy to absorb the impossible truth that humanity had not only survived the Coalition attack, but had destroyed it so completely that the major powers were now afraid to leave their home systems. "The Council will see you now," announced the Zephyrian aide, her crystalline form chiming nervously. Morrison nodded and followed the alien into the Great Hall. The scene was very different from Elena Vasquez's first appearance here months ago. Then the seats had been filled with confident representatives of species that ruled the galaxy. Now many sections were empty, and those aliens who had come seemed diminished somehow. War Marshal Theknos was not present. The Corvan Empire was too busy rebuilding their shattered fleet to send representatives. The Ethereal Collective had withdrawn entirely, their gas form representatives claiming they needed time to reassess the nature of physical reality. High Counselor Nextara looked older than her ancient years as Morrison approached the speaking platform. The holographic displays around the hall showed the wreckage still floating in Sol system, a monument to galactic arrogance. "Admiral Morrison," Nextara said, her voice carrying none of its former authority. "The Galactic Council acknowledges that our previous assessment of human capabilities was incomplete." Morrison said nothing. She simply stood and waited, letting the silence stretch until the aliens began to fidget with nervousness. "We wish to renegotiate the terms of humanity's membership in this council," Nextara continued. "I see," Morrison replied calmly. "And what terms are you proposing?" The question seemed to hang in the air like a death sentence. Morrison could see the aliens exchanging glances, telepathic conversations flickering between species. They all knew that humanity no longer needed the Council's permission for anything. "Full membership," the Vex Collective speaker said finally. "Voting rights, access to all trade agreements, and expanded territorial rights." "How expanded?" Another exchange of nervous looks. "Whatever territories you wish to claim," Nexitara admitted. Morrison nodded as if this was exactly what she had expected. "The United Earth government appreciates the Council's offer. However, we have some terms of our own." The hall fell silent. For the first time in galactic history, the species that had founded the Council were about to be dictated to by newcomers. "First," Morrison said, "humanity will establish defense agreements with any species that requests our protection. Second, human ships will have unrestricted access to all trade routes and systems. Third, any species wishing to acquire human technology will do so through formal diplomatic channels. And if we refuse these terms," asked Counselor Vexai, though her crystalline form was already shifting colors that indicated submission. Morrison's expression didn't change. Then you'll be explaining to your people why their fleets are scrap metal floating in space. It wasn't a threat. It was simply a statement of fact. There's one more thing, Morrison continued. Any species that attempts to acquire human technology through espionage or theft will discover why our defensive capabilities are so effective. The implied threat was clear. Ares had demonstrated its ability to track and destroy entire fleets. What could it do to a single world that crossed humanity? These terms are acceptable, Nextara said quietly. As Morrison left the council chambers, she activated her personal communicator. Ares status report. All human fleets report nominal status, the AI replied through her earpiece. Construction of additional warships proceeds ahead of schedule. 7 minor species have formally requested defense agreements. 7. The Kalari Republic, the Nexian Trade Confederation, 3 independent systems, and 2 former Corvan colonies. It appears that word of human military effectiveness has spread rapidly. Morrison smiled. It had taken less than a month for the galaxy's power structure to completely collapse. Species that had served as vassals to the major powers for centuries were suddenly declaring independence, knowing that humanity would protect them from retaliation. What about our former enemies? The Corvan Empire has begun reverse engineering human kinetic weapons with limited success. The Zephyrian Collective has requested formal meetings to discuss technological exchange. The Vex Collective has submitted a proposal for joint research into adaptive AI systems. And the others? 47 different species have submitted formal requests to establish embassies on Earth. Trade applications number in the thousands. It appears that being the galaxy's new dominant military power has certain economic advantages. Captain Zara Chen appeared on Morrison's communicator display, her image transmitted from the bridge of the Prometheus. Admiral, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. Put it through. President Williams' face replaced Chen's on the display. Admiral Morrison, I wanted to personally congratulate you on the success of the Sol Defense Operation. The Joint Chiefs are calling it the most decisive military victory in human history. Thank you, Madam President, but I think we both know this is just the beginning. Agreed. We've received intelligence that several species are attempting to form a new coalition. Apparently they think that if they can't beat us individually, they might have better luck working together. Morrison wasn't surprised. Fear was a powerful motivator, and the galaxy's former powers were very afraid indeed. Orders? Continue with the expansion protocol. We need more shipyards, more defensive platforms, and more allies. The galaxy is watching to see if humanity's victory was luck or the new normal. And if they try to form another coalition? President Williams' expression grew cold. Then we show them exactly what happens when you threaten Earth twice. The transmission ended, and Morrison returned to watching the Prometheus through the observation deck windows. Around the massive warship, smaller human vessels moved with purpose, their crews confident in the knowledge that they served the galaxy's new dominant power. In the distance, alien ships gave the human fleet a wide berth. The laughter had stopped. The dismissive comments about primitive technology were gone. Now, when the galaxy's species looked at humanity, they saw something very different. They saw the future. And in the hidden command centers throughout human space, Ares continued its endless calculations, designing new weapons, planning new strategies, and preparing for whatever challenges the galaxy might bring. Adaptation is not humanity's greatest strength, the AI had said during those first crucial hours of the Sol defense. It's their gift to the galaxy. The galaxy was about to learn just how generous humanity could be.